Guidance and Counseling under the supervision of Professor Ramses de Jesus. At the moment, I am at the campus of Chinguzi Secondary School in Brampton, Ontario. Before I go inside, my husband, of course, he took some video of the school as a proof. So in just a moment, we'll be going inside. Thank you.
Okay. And counseling is one of the many courses that you can take?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Actually, before... Hi, it's nice to finally meet you, Miss Libar. And I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you. And by the way, my name is Mylodette Flores Marmol. Before I proceed, I'd like to say thank you in advance for giving me your knowledge about guidance and counseling. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Thanks. So shall we begin?
Sure.
All right, first question. It is essential for counselors to develop sensitivity to cultural differences. If you hope to make an intervention that are congruent with the values of your client, my question will be, how do you separate your values to their values as you give your advice?
Well, I think it's important to understand the background of the client first. And I think you can only do that by asking questions rather than assuming that they, are a certain background because of the way that they look. So I think you need to understand your client before you can just jump into assumptions. And really, as a counselor, I don't bring in a lot of personal experiences or a lot of my own opinions so that it doesn't change the client's decisions. Sometimes I'll use a personal example just to help them understand how I made that decision or how I overcame a struggle. But I try not to do that too often, just so that they recognize that they are their own person and they might do it in a different way than I might do it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good point because you cannot bring your own opinion. You really have to tell them. You can only guide them, right? So please tell me, in your practice, what is the most challenging part that you have encountered, given Canada as a multicultural country? Thus, a careful balance must be observed to achieve excellence in giving guidance. It is definitely not a one-size-fits-all.
Definitely not. No, not at all. And I think the biggest challenge, comes with mental health issues. There's been an increase of mental health issues, and there's been an increase in educating people about mental health issues. And I think students sometimes are quite well educated on mental health issues. Counselors are well educated, but often parents aren't. And
good point.
Naturally, parents don't want to hear that their child might be suffering from anxiety or depression or something like that. But sometimes that's a reality. And so the biggest struggle is getting parents to understand what that looks like in their own child and to accept the fact that their child might have whether it's a learning disability or a mental health issue, and that there isn't always a one-size-fits-all answer to that problem. So it's not always between the student. It's often more challenging to work with the parent and help them become educated and learn more about the issue.
Honestly, I never thought about that. That's a really good point, right? Children may be knowledgeable, but the parents are not.
Right. And in the school system, we teach more mental health issues to students, so that's why I feel like they are more aware of the issues than maybe what it was like when I went to high school.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, then, continue. I understand that you are dealing mostly with grades 11 and grade 12, right? Oftentimes, they are in the valley of indecision or crossroads prior to college or university journey. So as a guidance counselor, how do you give them advice or redirect their focus as they pursue higher education?
And I think grade 11s and 12, once they hit that grade 11 mark, that's when they really have to start making those decisions. And some students aren't ready to make that decision. So individual guidance is helpful one-on-one, but often students are hesitant to come down because they think, oh, it's so far away, I don't need to figure this out now. So we also do classroom visits to try and hit some of those students that might not come down individually. And in those classrooms visits, we give them some online resources and things like that that they can access on their own time to try and discover. So some of the activities are called like self-discovery, for example. So they answer a series of questions and it spits out, you know, these might be careers that you would be interested in based on their answers. And then from there there's a link that will allow them to research. Okay, so this program told me I should maybe be a nurse. So where do I go to find out more information about what a nursing program would look like, for example? So I think different online resources, and co-op is another something that I always push in grade 11s and 12s, especially for students who are unsure about what they want to do. And I think, like you said earlier about your daughter, sometimes they think this is the career I want. They go to a co-op placement in that field and realize this is not what I want to do, or this isn't what I thought it would be. So I think co-op is a really good experience to see, is this really what I want to do? So those are different things that I would recommend.
Thank you. I like that answer, really, honestly. So based from Donald Super's theory, the closer the chosen occupation is to self-concept, the more meaningful the choice is. For example, needs of individual must be taken into account. So in the case of the student, how do you base your recommendation, or how do you guide them, the students, on which path to take? So this will be a three-part question. I'd like you to answer this first.
Okay. I think it's most important for students to understand who they are and what their passions are. And so that's where the conversation always starts. And what are you interested in? What do you do in your free time? If you weren't in school, what would you be doing? What subjects do you like to take in school? And I think those answers often help direct a student to maybe what pathway they're interested in. You know, if a student's not interested in, say, the sciences or English, but it really likes phys ed, and that's all they can think about, then you start thinking of careers and start thinking of fields that fit well with that. And so that's sometimes a good start.
Right. This question of mine, the next one will be a little bit harder for me, the way I look at it. Say, I was really wondering if, say, one day a child came to you and said, my parents wants me to be a doctor, as an example, of course, right? But however, the child said to you that he's not interested in that field, but he doesn't want to disappoint, or he's scared to tell his parents. Oh, I mean, what do you do?
It's actually quite common, and often we have the kids coming to us say, I want to be a doctor, and sometimes you look at their marks or you look at how they're achieving in school, and the reality is they may struggle to become a doctor or to even go into that field, or even get accepted to a university with their marks. And so sometimes just that conversation with the student about what does this really look like and what's the reality of becoming a doctor, what do you need to become a doctor. And I think it is common for students to say, oh, I want to be a doctor, and when you really start asking the question, they don't want to be a doctor. Their parents want them to be a doctor. And there's a lot of pressure now from students, from parents on students, that you need to do this and you need to do that. And maybe that's not new. I think it's always happened, right? Your parents,
especially for Asian people, that's us, right?
Parents have high expectations of their kids. So I think it is common, and it's something all the counselors in this building have dealt with before. And I think some of the ways I've successfully dealt with this is bringing the parents in. And that way I'm kind of a mediator between the child and the parent, where the child's free to express how they really feel without worrying about maybe judgment from their parent. And sometimes I'm there to just help the conversation and look at some of the facts. So look at their marks and look at what the reality would be for them to become a doctor, and maybe, you know, and look at what their passions are, and where, you know what, they really aren't interested in math and science. They're actually quite interested in writing and reading. And so here are some other possible careers.
I mean, honestly, that is really a good point, because that's very common as an Asian person. parents will tell their children, oh, you have to be a nurse, you have to be a doctor, and meanwhile the child is like, I don't want to be like that. Why you're pushing me to be like that?
Right.
So the third part of my question is, if indeed, this is another side of the question, if indeed the child is indecisive, how do you narrow down choices? Or in extreme situation, if a child doesn't have any clue what he's going to take, I mean, what do you do?
And sometimes it's hard because you do have students even in grade 12 still saying, I don't know what I'm interested in, I don't know what I like. So there's university and college programs that are for those students, and so they can take a kind of a general year to get a feel for what university and college feels like without feeling like they're stuck in, taking a biology major.
Right.
So they could take a general science field or a general arts field. So sometimes that would be my recommendation. If their marks are good and they know they want to attend university or college, that's where I would probably lead them. If they really have no clue, sometimes students are welcome to come back for a fifth year.
Really?
And quite a few do.
They do?
Yep, and that's where, so the students that felt like, I couldn't fit co-op into my timetable in grade 12, well, now they have the opportunity to do that. So then they can take a co-op placement in a field that they might be thinking of, and then really find out if that's worth pursuing.
So they lost somehow 1 year, but they gain in a way because they understand better what they want.
I think so.
They save money as well, right?
Exactly, and that's the other part. Sometimes they feel forced to go to university or college by their parents, and they're not quite ready. And so coming back a fifth year is it's more common than you would think, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's for Ivan. That's an additional comment from me. Sorry, that's not part of it. So that's my son, by the way. So let's shift our gear into the last segment of my interview. Okay. As a counselor, you do recognize diversity in shaping your counseling practice to fit the client's world. So what's the most challenging part in your experience? Like I said, this is a multicultural client that you are servicing. My question will be, how do you incorporate guidance knowing that you are dealing with different culture and orientation?
It's a good question. I think it's an ongoing challenge. But it's part of the reason I enjoy teaching and counseling where I do, because it is so diverse. And because I have the opportunity to learn about different cultures and learn about expectations. So I think it starts with me by learning and asking questions. So asking the students, what does this look like at home? And, what do you do on the weekends? And what do your parents do? And, tell me more about your religion and your faith and things like that. So it starts with me learning by asking questions, or reading books, or, just on my own time about different things that I want to learn more about. And then sometimes I think it's, when you're in a meeting with a parent or a child, it's okay to be very clear about the fact that, I don't understand what you mean by that because culturally I was raised different. Or can you tell me more about what that means? And sometimes I think some parents come into the office and see me and assume certain things about me based on the way I look, based on the color of my skin, which I think is normal. And maybe I do the same. I think we all do the same to a certain extent.
Kind of like brand them.
Right. Or you think, she's not going to know what I'm talking about. And so sometimes it's just nice to be totally open and honest about that and say, I don't totally understand where you're coming from. Can you help me understand it? Or tell me more about what that looks like. So I'm usually I try to be quite transparent and not to push my culture on them or my beliefs or anything like that, especially in our society that is so diverse.
Right. I mean, this one is not part of my question, but I'm thinking really listening from you. It is quite a challenge as a guidance counselor, looking at the background of these different people. We're not just dealing I'll call it real Canadian, like white people or from other countries, but we're talking worldwide.
Right.
And they come here, like say even the last 2 years of their education in high school. I mean, how are you going to tell them or help them in terms of university life or in choosing their profession?
Right.
So it's really tough. I mean, I admire you for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a struggle for students because I have a grade 9 student who's new from India, and this is his first time in a Canadian school setting. And so I just think you know, he has the background academic knowledge,
Right.
but I just think culturally he must, every day I think, oh, he must be wondering about this and wondering, and how does this work and how does that work? And then university and college and making those decisions, well, that's a whole nother step for those students too. So yeah, you try to support them as best that you can.
You can, that's
Yeah.
right, yes. All right, we are in my final question. This will be my final question to you. I am interested to know if there are manifestations or you kind of observe mental health issue directly or indirectly due to stressful lifestyle or academic pursuit of your student.
Absolutely, and I think I've been in guidance. I've been in guidance for I think this is my 5th year as a counselor, and I would say in the 5 years that I've been doing this, mental health issues have become more obvious, and more students are presenting with issues in different ways. And so anxiety seems to be a high one right now, and a lot of that is coming from the pressures they put on themselves sometimes, or they feel that their parents or their friends or their family members are putting on them as well. And it's being shown in so many different ways, but just student anxieties of crying, or they can't even cope during the day, so they leave. Because it's just way too stressful for them sometimes, and self-harm is more common than it was. Even when I started, it's becoming, I wouldn't say common, but it's becoming more, I'm seeing more cases
the frequency
of
is
that.
there, right?
Exactly.
Right. And they're not even stepping into university and the real life, I call it, right? And they're so stressful
The stresses
already.
of high school are enough for some of them sometimes.
Right.
Yep.
So, okay, in closing, we know that each individual must, in the final analysis, make his own choices and must assume responsibility for his decision, right? Is it safe to say then that the goals of counselor is to guide by helping them see the obstacle clearly and to make sound judgment to arrive at the right decision? If this is pointed to them with clarity, I'm saying now, if as a guidance counselor, if you have that, if you point it to them with clarity, then we know for sure that changes can occur. And that it will help them. It will be able to guide them in the right direction. Hence, guidance is concerned with optimum development of their client, correct? And last word is like, can I say that counselor can serve or act like a catalyst in a way?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we don't have all the answers, and we're not here to provide them with all the answers, but we're there to, I think catalyst is a good word, help them ask the right questions and to explore different areas, and when they're really stuck, to come back to us and say, I need help. And I think if we just gave them the answers and told them what to do, then we wouldn't be doing our job.
Right.
And so it's more important to guide them and give them the resources that they need to make the right decisions.
Okay, this is an honest one. And I mean, I don't have to say honest one. It was really indeed a fruitful interview. I really learned a lot.
Good. I'm glad.
No, really I am. And I thank you so much despite of your busy schedule. I don't even know if you had your lunch yet.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did. Yep.
So thank you so much.
You're
and I
welcome.
hope that one day I'll be a good teacher, educator, and hopefully become a counselor myself.
Well, good luck to you. I hope
Thank you
too.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Ms. Lebar.
Thanks.
Thank you, my husband.